are your favorite movies, just of all time?
Well,
Which you probably get asked in every single interview.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Of all time, I have to tell you, I think Godfather 1 and 2 are the greatest movies that have ever been made, overall. And there's violence, but
Yeah.
but it's most people kind of accept
Have
it.
you met Coppola?
No, I mean I've seen him from a
Right.
distance, and then but there's been movies that have had great impact on me. For example, Animal House is a movie that it was my generation. I was in college. I was in a fraternity. That movie had enormous.
Did you experience?
I
frat
experienced
parties?
it. I experienced it. Yeah, and
Did you wear a toga?
No. But so it's like those movies I think that have kind of impacted me. But I like a lot of movies. There was a movie out this last year. I liked the Bourne series, the Bourne Ultimatum. I thought it was an amazing movie. How technically well it was done. I tend to like those spy movies. I think that they're interesting. But that's the great thing is the eclectic nature. That's why American movies do so well, because we're so eclectic. It's just we cover the lot. When you see, often we'll see, and there's great French movies and great Italian movies and great Canadian movies, but the eclectic nature of the American movie system is what makes it so great. It just there's no genre for it. It's everything under the sun, and I think that accounts for the fact why people like. I'll give you one interesting story. I went to India 2 years ago, and to speak at some film conference. And afterwards I said I would like to go see an Indian multiplex, because India, by the way, half the box office admissions in the world are in India, one country, because they produce way more movies than we do, but their movies are largely for their own market.
Right.
So, we sell some movies in India, so I went to see this movie at this theater, and I'm walking around the block to see the theater, and there's a line outside the theater, and so I go in and I ask the theater manager, what's playing here? They said, well, they have 5 Indian movies and 1 American movie. I said, what's the American movie? They said, well, it's a movie called Meet the Fockers. And so I said, oh, gee, is that movie popular in India? And they said, yes. And I said, why? They said, well, you see, that movie is about family, about celebration, about color, about happiness. And that is exactly what we like in India. So here is this movie with kind of a Jewish theme with Dustin Hoffman and Barbara Streisand and Robert De Niro. And this is this movie that's very popular in India.
All international movie
and
stars.
more and more, if you'll notice, our movies, to be successful, have to be successful overseas, because it costs to make and market an average major studio movie costs almost $100 million. That includes marketing costs and everything else. That doesn't mean every movie costs that much. All right, so if you look at the box office, very few movies, first of all, maybe 2 in 10 movies ever make their money back when you count everything. But very few movies can make it alone in this country. They have to sell overseas. And I said a majority of box office is outside the United States. So when you make a movie, you have to think about, will this sell in Europe?
Yeah.
So you have to think about what kind of stars will sell overseas, what kind of themes will sell overseas. So this is a much more globalized business than it used to be.
Well, some of the biggest entertainment we've been getting these past several weeks has been from the political campaign, from the presidential race. Do you like the way your party's conducting themselves so far, the Democrats?
Well, I would say this. My own state of Kansas, which has not been the heartland of Democratic politics, and we're the longest running state in the country that has not elected a Democratic United States Senator. The last one was in 1932 for a 6-year term. Okay. In the caucuses this year, the Republicans and Democrats caucused. Obama won the Democratic caucus, and Huckabee won the Republican caucus. But there were about 27,000 Democrats that caucused, and about 12,000 Republicans that caucused in a state that has almost 2-to-1 Republican registration edge. That's happened now almost everywhere. Maybe not in that amount, but it's happening. If you look at the primary vote in Virginia, you look at the primary vote in Maryland, you look all over the country. So I would say that regards taking away the candidates on this thing, you are seeing just an enormous level of interest and enthusiasm from people in the Democratic Party process, which is very interesting.
And do you think that is a passion for something or a passion against something?
I think it's probably both. I think it probably reflects resistance or frustration to the Bush administration, but I do think that the candidates, Obama and Clinton, have both pulled that out. And I don't think there's any question Obama has been a big factor in drawing out young people that we haven't seen for some time.
Do you have are you a superdelegate?
No.
No. Would you like to?
I personally think that this idea of superdelegates is fairly anti-democratic myself, but
Right.
I'm not keen on that.
And
but,
and the party's taken a lot of heat for it too. As
well, I
people
think
have
it was,
learned about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was done. Both parties have it. I
Yeah.
think it was done in order to try to provide some wisdom at the end of the process. But it's
Like the people aren't smart enough on their
well,
own?
or sometimes I think the reason why we have superdelegates is because members of Congress, like I used to be, didn't want to run to be a delegate for fear of not winning. So then they created a whole class of, so they didn't have to run for being. But that may
It
be
all
a too
comes back to
cynical.
being
of a,
about
you know.
Congress, so you can
Well,
be
it all
cynical.
comes back about being elected.
Right,
You know.
yeah.
But any event, I think that. That the election that we have right now is going to produce a voter turnout that we haven't seen for a very long time. I think it's extraordinary.
Have
And,
you endorsed anybody?
my wife and I are supporting Hillary. You know, I worked for in the
Feeling a
administration.
little out in the cold right now?
No, you know, I mean, I'm not intimately involved in the election
Right.
one way or the other. I have not gone out and campaigned or anything like that.
Well,
so.
well, let me ask you a question that might be easier then. What could the new president do for the entertainment industry or for the issues that you have on the table? Is there
Two
something
things.
you're going to want from that?
Well, I
office?
think supporting intellectual property rights, supporting the significance of the creator of ideas. And they have, by the way, both parties have been good on this. This is not a partisan issue at all. And the second thing is continuing to push.
Spoken like a true master statesman.
Well, but it's true. I have to tell you, some of our best friends in Congress are Republicans on these issues. It's just not a partisan issue. And the other thing is making sure that there are open borders so we can get our product overseas. As I told you, we kind of live or die based on what happens outside the United States as well. And I think the third thing is to fight censorship. And I must tell you, in this country, we're always on the cusp of somebody wanting to come in and control content. Yeah. And it's a difficult political battle to face. And we obviously want to protect First Amendment rights and free speech.
I'm assuming you're hoping the Democrats will win. Do you think that if the Democrats win, it'll bring a new exciting time back to Washington? It hasn't been very exciting the last.
Well, I think the following. I think whoever wins, but let's assume it's a Democrat that wins, I think has to govern in a less divisive, less partisan
Right.
style. So I'd like to see whoever wins the presidency have a bipartisan cabinet, do things that, really reach out, that we haven't done in a long time. It's been a very long time before you've seen people truly reaching across
Right.
the lines. At the same time, we can't be naive about it. We have two parties. They are different, and they're not going to lay down like the lion and the lamb every day, and shouldn't, because there are different political philosophies there.
Our time's up. One last question. If the new president was a Democrat, or even if it was a Republican and asked you to leave this job to go back into the cabinet, would you?
I would say that the opportunity probably won't present itself. I would doubt it, but it would depend on what it was.
There you go.
I don't. I mean, look, I've spent a lot of time in government, 25 years, and so it's time for other people to take the mantle and take that opportunity. I remember that John Kennedy used to say, "It's time to pass the torch to a new generation of Americans," and I think that's kind of what's in the political agenda right now. Is that people may think this is the time to pass the torch a little bit.
Plus, you've got a screening room.
Yes.
You can't really compete with that. Well, thank you very much,
All right.
Dan Glickman. It's been
Thank
terrific.
you. Okay.
Everybody, happy Valentine's Day.